A Trip into the Darkness, Chapter 28. Andre stalked the boat and Mallory followed him into the streets of the little city they were in. There were only a few cars on the streets, most of the people traveling around on mopeds and other motorized vehicles, along with bicycles. She had expected them to walk, but he had a car waiting for them at the docks. Climbing in, he greeted the driver in Spanish, and then they were off. Arriving at the first store, they got out and went inside. There was no one in the boutique besides them and the woman who greeted them in Spanish. Andres greeted her and then said something about shoes. Nodding, the woman motioned to a couple of chairs and then disappeared into the back. I hope you didn't tell her anything fancy. I just need a pair of regular shoes, preferably something comfortable, and a pack of socks. Nothing else, Mallory told him. Instead of answering her, he just nodded. When the woman returned, she was carrying multiple boxes and fell at Mallory's feet. When she began opening them, Mallory shook her head and told her no. Every box she had brought out contained high heels and other illogical options. She had only worn heels once in her life, and that had been to her junior prom. She had been taller than almost every guy in the gym that night. One of the boxes the woman opened had a pair of black leather strappy sandals, which caught her eye. The woman noticed her staring at them and took them out of the box before slipping them on her feet. They fit perfectly, which was creepy, considering the woman had not bothered to ask her shoe size before she ran off to get everything. Andres said something else to the woman, and she stood up and went to the back of the store again. She returned with shoes that were more to Mallory's liking. After the woman opened all the boxes, Mallory found a pair that were a lot like her Converse at his house, except they were not dirty and falling apart. Mallory pointed at them and stood up. Okay, we can go to the Plex place now, she told Andres as he stood up too. He said something to the woman, who nodded and gathered a few more boxes to take to the register, along with a couple of packs of socks. When she started reading everything up, Mallory looked at him. I don't need those other shoes, Andres. I'm perfectly content with my Converse. Nodding his head, he pulled those out of the bag, along with a pair of socks, and handed them to her. Go put these on, please, he said, and she took them from his hands, deciding that if he wanted to waste his money on things that she would never wear and couldn't take with her when she left, then that was on him. The next place they arrived at was a clothing store. It was also empty except for them and an older lady this time. Andres told her to pick out everything she wanted and needed before he took his seat and started conversing with the woman in Spanish. Biting her lips, she wandered around the store. The majority of the clothing in the shop was dressy and for special occasions. She had to search to find a normal pair of jeans. She also picked out a couple simple t-shirts, panties, a long-sleeve shirt with a hood. She figured when she was back on the run, she would have to protect her skin. Andre's blood would undoubtedly leave her system, and she would become allergic to the sun's harmful rays once again. It was a sad reality, but she wanted to be prepared. Walking to the front, the lady saw her and ushered her to a dressing room. Once inside, Mallory found everything she had picked out to be loose and baggy on her. Putting back on her borrowed clothes, she decided if she ever got back to her normal size, they would fit. Sitting her clothing down at the register, she waited for the woman to check her out. Currently, the woman was shoving other clothes into bags and smiled at her. After a couple of minutes, she started scanning Mallory's clothes. Andres paid, and Mallory grabbed her one small bag of clothing, and he grabbed 6 larger bags that were stuffed full. She narrowed her eyes at him. It was an all-woman store, after all. With a smile, he walked out and held the store door open for her. Stowing her bags in the trunk, they went to another boutique that consisted mostly of cosmetics. Inside, a male approached, and Andre said something to him, causing him to nod and go to the register. Get whatever you want, even if you think you'll only use it once. I'll be right back. I have to go to a different department and grab a few things. And with that, he walked off. Mallory watched him exit the front door and disappear around the corner. Looking around, she knew she could run. The car was still outside, and the driver was human. She could tell him in Spanish to drive, and she would find her way back to the boat. Kicking herself, she realized she had not paid a lick of attention to how he had driven the vessel, but it couldn't be that hard. It did have a key, though, and she was almost positive that he had taken that out of the ignition when they got off. Then she remembered that they were on an island somewhere and that the sun was quickly sinking outside. By the time she found her way back to the dock, it would be dark. The boat did not have a GPS that she had seen, so she'd be out sailing in the open waters without a clue in the world of where the fuck she was going. Of course, Andres had more than likely already thought of this when he left her in the store to run his little errand. Shaking her head to clear it, she looked around. She found a bottle of mousse and other products for her hair, scrunchies, hair ties, moisturizer for her face and body, and a toothbrush and toothpaste. When he was still not back, she looked around at the abundance of makeup. Not that she had a reason to wear any of it, but he had said she could get whatever she wanted, so she grabbed mascara, eyeshadow, and lip stain. With her arms full, she went to the counter. The man smiled at her and checked everything out. The door to the shop opened and Andres walked back in. After paying, they were back in the car. "Do you want or need anything else?" he asked her once they were inside the back. Looking at him, her heart started to accelerate and her mouth became dry, for an entirely different reason than being hungry. "No," she said, feeling his energy dancing around her. The car drove them back to the dock. When she opened the window in hopes of lessening the tension that was building inside of her, of course it did not work because it was not his smell that was driving her crazy, even though he did smell wonderful. His strong aura was not something that could easily be dispatched with the act of opening a window. When the car stopped, Mallory jumped out and quickly moved to the trunk to grab her bags. They loaded everything inside the boats and stashed the products in a hidden apartment. Andres took a seat and started the engine. Instead of driving away into the open sea, he pulled out a box and opened it. Mallory shook her head in wonder when she saw the assortment of different cupcakes inside. "Tell me this isn't the errand you had to run," she asked him as she took one that had vanilla icing with a strawberry on top. "It was part of the errand, but not all of it," he informed her while he pulled out a chocolate one before setting the box on the floor. Mallory bit into hers and found it to have strawberry filling in the middle. Closing her eyes, she enjoyed the delicious sweetness. This is yummy," she told him after another bite. "I'm glad you like it. This bakery is one of the businesses I co-own on this island." "Really? Of all the businesses to have, you own a bakery? Why?" "Let's just say I have a bit of a sweet tooth," he told her with a chuckle. "Would you like another glass of wine?" he offered after they finished their cupcakes. "Please." Andres pulled out the bottle out of the cooler and filled their glasses before he pulled a lever, causing the boat to take off into the night. It had cooled down without the sun shining, and the chilly air brought goosebumps to her exposed skin. Even though it was night, it was far from dark. The stars were shining with the strength of a million little lights overhead, and the moon was waning above them. It was beautiful watching the waves of the ocean move and sway under the soft light of the sky. The ride back to Andres's island was quiet, but it didn't feel strained or awkward. It was like they were both simply enjoying each other's company, and there was no need to fill the peaceful silence with chatter. It is hard to find someone in life with whom you do not have to keep a constant monologue to have a good time. Mallory took another sip of her wine and decided it was just the alcohol, thinking that. Pulling up to the dock on his island, he turned off the engine and sat there while the waves slowly rocked the boat. The lights from the house were faint from this distance. "Do all of your employees live on the island?" Mallory asked. "No, the guards do. Groundskeeper does, and a couple of my guards. But besides the guards on duty every night, everyone else goes home in the evening." "The boats on the other side of the island, do they belong to them?" she asked. "Yes, a couple of the guards ride together, since they live so close," he replied, where they steered off in the distance. Mallory smiled and said, "Boat pulling, that's smart. Save on gas, and it's better for the environment. When I lived in the city, I didn't have a car. I would tell myself it was better for global warming, that I wasn't part of the population that was polluting the atmosphere." Andres chuckled at her response and looked at her, causing butterflies to fly on her tummy. "That is one way to look at life, positively. I will be honest, I've never really considered global warming. I was born in an age when science was the process of stabbing people so they would bleed out when they were sick. I guess I still don't trust scientists too much to this day," Andres told her before he looked back out at the waves of the sky. Pursing her lips, Mallory informed him, "I'm pretty sure those were doctors that stabbed people, and I agree that I don't trust doctors. They're money-hungry buffoons that just believe that what they're taught in medical school. Scientists, on the other hand, are philosophers and big world thinkers. They set out to answer the question of how the world works, like Newton and his theory on gravity, and Aristotle and his contribution to zoology." Pausing for a minute to think, Mallory continued, "I have to be honest, though, the whole idea of gravity seems far-fetched to me. I mean, I get it, but without being able to see the world from afar, I just don't know if I believe in that theory." She fell quiet. "You are a very interesting person to talk to, Blue Eyes. I've never thought deeply about Newton's theory on gravity, though I have read a few books on the natural law and things of that nature. I was already hundreds of years old when the world discovered gravity and was well established in my career. It did not affect me one way or another." Mallory bit her lip at the mention of his age. He was so easy to converse with that she had almost forgotten that he was an immortal vampire and that she was something different now, too. They continued to sit there and discuss different philosophers and her opinions on their theories, while Andres gave her feedback on his own beliefs. When he asked if she was religious, she thought of Freya and how the goddess had come to her in a dream and helped her escape Troy's manor. She told him she was more of an agnostic with a preference for Norse paganism. He told her that he had been Catholic and a faithful Christian for years until he decided that even if the Christian God was real, he was damned for his sins and damned for his long life. Mallory told him she did not believe in damnation. We live, we die, and we might reincarnate. Andres was fixing to speak again when Mallory yawned. With a smile, he stood up from the seat and asked her if she was ready to go inside. Nodding, she got up and helped him gather the bags. Inside the house, he helped her carry everything up to her temporary room. When he sat everything down on the floor, she looked at him and said, "I didn't pick out all these clothes." "I know you didn't, but they are all yours nonetheless. No one should be expected to live with only a single pair of jeans and a couple of blouses." "I'm not staying here, Andres," she informed him as he started to back out of the room. "I know, but for as long as you are, I want you to be comfortable. Good night, Blue Eyes," he told her. Turning around, he left her alone in the room with the door still open. She stood there and observed his energy as it moved to the other side of the house. When it became nothing more than a faint flicker drifting to her, she decided he was probably in his room. She felt lonely without his strong aura flowing into her. Glancing at the bags, she sat on the floor and started to dig through them to see what he had added. Looking first at the shoes, she found the brown leather sandals that she had admired. The next box held a pair of running shoes. She was extremely happy about both of those. The third box, however, had her raising her eyebrows. Sitting with her legs crossed on the floor, she stared at the black stilettos with red bottoms. They had to be 4 inches tall. No way she would ever be wearing those. With a snort, she started digging through the 6 bags of clothes he thought she needed. Most of it was completely illogical. Fancy dresses that would show off entirely too much of her skin, and risque tops. She found a pair of leather pants she liked, though. The many pairs of shorts that Andres had added were sure to leave her ass hanging out. Mallory had never considered herself modest, but she had never put much effort into it when it came to dressing sexy or wearing fancy clothes that she did not find comfortable. As she continued to dig through the bags, she found blush-worthy panties and 3 little swimsuits. She was surprised when she didn't find any bras in the bags. Most guys would say they liked that she didn't wear a bra, then would turn around and criticize her for being a slut. When she pulled out a silk Nike, she wanted to hug Andres. It was black, as were most of the clothes in the bag, and so smooth. Standing up, she stripped naked and was about to put it on when she remembered she had access to a shower and a ton of new cosmetics. With a squeal of excitement, she grabbed her bag full of beauty supplies and ran to the bathroom. After showering and pampering herself, Mallory pulled on the nightie and sighed. It was so pretty and fit her perfectly. She wondered how he and the clothes lady had known her size when she didn't even know it herself anymore. Turning off the light in the bathroom, and then in her bedroom, she made her way over to the plush bed and slid under the covers. It was so soft, and there must have been 10 pillows for her to cuddle. Lying there, she listened to the quietness, and tears filled her eyes. She had gone from a homeless, strung-out, and starved girl sleeping in abandoned buildings to this in a matter of 24 hours. It was mind-boggling how fast her life had changed repeatedly in the duration of one day. She wondered if she would have made it to Brazil if Troy's monkeys hadn't almost grabbed her and Andres hadn't found her. She had known that she was close to death or completely losing her mind. She could barely even remember the last 3 weeks of her life. It all seemed like a blur of pain and bloodlust. Closing her eyes, she wished she could just forget about going to Brazil and finding the Amazon River. The cold thing in her neck seemed to hear that thought and whispered, "There is no forgetting what must be done, Mallory."